Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin Henry, and my partner in crime in life is Pommy Henry. I have a rare disease known as spinal cerebellar ataxia, which is a neuromuscular disease. This has left me mobility challenges as well as with a speech impediment and noise-induced anxiety.
Living with these disabilities for over 20 years, we have developed helpful hints and life lessons that we would like to share with you that has made our life easier and possible in some cases. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to educate ourselves and you about other disabilities and issues, and also talk about things we find interesting and frequently encounter when we're out and about.
So welcome back to our podcast.
How's your day going, Kevin? It's been one of those days.
Today, your day has been a lot more hectic than mine.
We started off with computer issues yesterday, which would be our normal podcast day. We rushed it into Best Buy, and then they basically told us it's on its last legs, and so might need a new hard drive. So took it home, and they said use it until it breaks. So that's what we're doing here today. And then, but when they gave it back to me, they forgot to give me the power cord. It always helps to have a little bit of power to your computer. And then I got to go ready to go out to exercise, which I do every Wednesday. And my car got halfway, about a third there, and my car alarm started going off. Engine light and something else. I have no idea what the symbol was or whatever, but my mechanic will figure it out, I'm sure. So that's been our crazy day.
So before we start this podcast, today's episode is going to be disability upcharges. And I want to thank the Accessible Go community on the Circle app. You gave me some ideas that I never really contemplated. It's kind of hard when you're disabled. You don't really think about all the other disabilities out there. Just the problems you face seem to come to mind.
Well, I mean, everybody has their own personality, so things bother them more than other things, especially if you have a disability. I wanted to mention the
Accessible Go.
Accessible Go. We've used it several times in the last season. We talked about it. It's not an app. It's a website that you go to and you plan your vacation, and you put in the filters what your disability is, and then they will go. You tell them where you're going and what hotel you would like to go to, or they also have ones that are available that they know they've already verified that cover your disability. And then someone personally goes and talks to that hotel, car rental, etc., and determines whether it is fitting for your disability. So it's an amazing product that you can use out there. It saves a lot of time.
And as
no
Pommy
cost.
mentioned, it's not a disability upcharge. It's a free service.
Yeah, because I believe it is ran by people who are disabled.
Yeah, I don't know the whole story. I'd love for them to tell me what it is. And I will, next time I talk about them, give that story to you.
Yeah, and we're not sponsored by them, by the way. We just really have used them quite often. We'd love to be sponsored by them.
We appreciate the time and effort they go through to do it.
That's right.
It's been incorporated into our plans a few times.
So, Kevin, did you know households with adults who have a work disability may need to earn 28% more to maintain the same standard of living as a household without a disabled member?
Yeah, I heard that. And if you look at it, that's, an average, I guess. But for example, like with Pomby and I didn't get to be disabled until I was like almost 40. So we'd already gone beyond the stage where he had kids. We already had gone, we were at the stage where we were trying to get our youngest kid up into adulthood and out of the house.
Yeah, Rose was 3 or 4 when you got diagnosed.
Yeah. And fortunately, my disability did not debilitate me as far as they expected to do
As
before
quickly.
then.
Yeah, they had a diagnosis of 5 years, that your life would end within 5 years. But we did a lot of experimental things to make that. And I think they didn't know a lot about the disease at the time. That was 24 years ago now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense. I can think right off the bat, as soon as you got disabled, you immediately figured out that you couldn't drive. And so we had to have somebody who would drive our daughter back and forth to school because I was working full time at the time. So there's an additional cost there. All the walkers that you had to get.
Okay.
Wheelchairs.
In our case, though, you're skipping the elephant.
What's the elephant?
Well, instead of having, me having a job and you having a job, suddenly it was just you.
Right. We went from two income family to a 1 income family almost immediately. Yeah.
Because basically at the time, especially, I was going to be unemployable.
Right. And in addition to that, it was all I think we've told people prior, you went almost 3 years trying to get a diagnosis. So there was multiple hospital visits, and we live in a semi-rural area. So the nearest major medical system is about an hour and a half to 2 hours away. It's St. Louis is where we would refer to. We would go to the local doctors, but they were not knowledgeable enough in that area. We spent a long time in this area trying to find somebody, but we eventually just went to a metropolitan area, St. Louis.
And here it is, 24 years later, and I don't think you can find a specialist that covers my disease other than my neurologist.
Right. Well, because the universities, that type of university, they actually have a Washington University is strictly doctors. So it's a medical school. So there's a lot of expertise there where it does make sense to have it in this rural area.
And they're always pressing the boundaries of their knowledge, trying to learn new stuff. Whereas the doctors here are just reading about it.
Right.
So they may be able to conduct studies, have ends to funding for those studies, etc. But let's stop talking about doctors here.
Okay. So what else do you think increased? We decreased to 1 family income. What else was in addition?
What I'm saying is the 28% is an average. That's assuming that
both people work to begin with.
It's a lot easier nowadays to work remotely than it used to be.
Right, yeah.
Used to be a remote working job was offered to somebody in a large corporation who had been with that corporation for a while, and they happen to have that sort of thing that could be done remotely. Nowadays, since we've been through COVID, a lot of employers have discovered the benefits of working remotely. They don't have to buy as much brick and mortar office space. And then again, there's some jobs that just do not work remotely at all.
Right. Well, then, so the second thing, I think, the reduction of our income. And then the second thing was we were not living in a structure that was acceptable for your to adapt to. We were in a trailer at the time. The walls, all doors were, of course, at that time he was in a walker, with a walker, but still because you had an aggressive wide gate, you had a very large walker widthwise. And so we couldn't fit in a lot of the doors. We didn't have a ramp. We had a step to get up onto our porch. So there again, all that adaptation. What we ended up doing is we looked for almost 2 years while we were struggling with this diagnosis for a handicapped accessible home or one that we could easily adapt to. And we've probably saw over 100 homes. I mean, it was ridiculous. And in this area, and we opted just to have it built to buy a constructed house that was fully handicapped accessible.
Yeah, we had to basically commit to a house that was under construction that would be built with what we're looking for at the time.
Right. So we're talking all doors are 36 inches wide. We did end up with a two-level home. But for the first 10 years that we lived here, or more than that, you didn't have access to the basement unless you went around. We have a what's that called? Walkout basement, and so you didn't really have access to that.
No, I'm an upstairs guy. She probably has another guy living downstairs.
Well, he's usually not as loud as you are, apparently. But now we do have a stair lift. We had to install it when my dad came in. Our bathrooms were, I would say they were, at that time, again, we didn't know exactly what we need. So we did ask for a handicapped bathroom, like a shower, but it did end up being a step in instead of a roll in, which now, now that we knew.
Seems obvious, but we had no clue.
Right. Yeah. And then also we had grab bars. We had grab bars, but unfortunately they were not in the correct spots. Again, the construction was done and, they didn't ask us for where it would be the most convenient, and someone with a disability wouldn't know where you need to actually grab to hold on to yourself. So the only advantage was that the 2 bathrooms we had were kind of small. We ended up just recently. We ended up taking those 2 bathrooms and turning it into a 1 bathroom with a wheel-in shower. So once Kevin does get worse and cannot get out of the chair, right now he can still transfer. So he'll be able to roll him right into the shower and actually use it and stuff. What else did we get in the house? Oh, we had a ramp for the door. So we have the front door, there is a ramp that goes up to the door, and that was put in originally, and a ramp in the garage, which we didn't even ask for. I think they just went ahead and did that. Doesn't necessarily work well because we have heavy winters in Missouri, and so a lot of times we can't get Kevin out through. We'd never be able to load him through the garage with the new conversion van that we have. So, and for many years we had lots of stuff in our garage, so we didn't have access to it either anyhow, but that's fixed now. But what else would you think adaptation of the house was?
I wish I would have known back then that hard surface floors were a bigger deal than
with wheelchairs. We
thought it was, with the wheelchairs.
We had carpeting, and we have recently again removed our carpeting and put hardwood floors down. They are so much easier on his chair, and also on you, I think, too. we had some issues with you tripping over your feet with the carpet.
Right, but allow me to steer once again, dear. Let's go ahead and discuss each topics. I'm tired of talking about myself.
Okay, let's talk about what do you want to talk about?
What's on the sheet? What are some of the common or things you can think of?
Well, I think we
that
talked
are
about
upcharges?
special medical needs, like a specialty doctor, therapy, etc. Increased cost of living versus decreased of income. That was one of the...
Oh, well, a lot of that is, as we said, decreased income, which may or may not be a factor. I mean, if you're Bruce Wayne rich, probably you don't know that kind of stuff. But,
don't think a lot of us are.
I have yet to meet the guy who's disabled in Bruce Wayne rich, so...
Yeah. Adaptive need purchases like we were talking about.
A lot of the specialty medical care that's required for disabilities is just not, as Pommy was mentioning, available in our area or not financially available. Your insurance won't pay for it. It might be something that different insurance would pay for, but you're already either not eligible for that or you're beyond the sign-up window. So it's, something you gotta live without for a year before you can get her to sign you up for the plan that pays for that.
Right. We never found a plan that did the, we asked all of our plans to help us with the stair lift. They would nobody would help us, and no one would help us with the conversion van. So we had to purchase those on our own. And we're talking our conversion van, and we bought it in 2022, and it was in the $8,000 or $80,000 range. So we're talking, that's not. I mean, for vehicles, you're talking high-end vehicles at this point. And this is a Chevrolet.
Buy a really nice luxury sedan for that.
Right.
You could practically buy a house at that time for that.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money. Again, I guess they expect everybody to be Bruce Wayne rich. And we're on the topic of converting vehicles. They don't necessarily allow you to bring your 1985 van in and convert it. They won't do that for you. Basically, they only want to work on newer or newish cars. Either one you purchase from them or for them to work on, because they only, they're not dedicated car mechanics for whatever company or for whatever car dealer.
Yeah.
They convert the van. They might have guys that are like no more qualified than welders to weld stuff.
Right.
As opposed to like mechanics to work on cars.
So it's a brand. You typically have to go with a brand conversion company for it to be, truly converted. So.
And just like any other thing, you buy the warranty, their work, and all this stuff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing you have is dietary needs.
Dietary needs were one of the things I didn't really expect to come up, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. If you're in or have been in a wheelchair for a while, the first thing he does is your cholesterol shoots up just because you don't exercise enough to produce enough of what they call the good cholesterol. So,
And you're susceptible for other diseases also.
yeah, sure.
I'm sure you gain weight, that type of thing. You're like, again, you're not using your muscles and stuff. When my dad had his stroke, he had a stomach tube. So there might be a case where that a person cannot digest on their own or unable to eat. And that's where, you would have the additional supplements. My dad was on Insure. Medicare would not pay for it. And so that was, I think at that time it was like $30 for a 30 pack. And, he got four or five a day. So that doesn't, that goes through fast pretty quickly. And I ended up having to buy it from Sam's.
And the cost adds up.
Yeah. And then additional medicines, Kevin has to be on a vitamin D pill because he does not get enough sun. Everything affects him because of his allergies and stuff. So he has to take
I tend to
supplement
a lot.
Yeah. And then the next thing you have here is insurance gaps.
Sure. There's a gap, if you will, between, say, I think we talked about this before, Medicaid and Medicare. If you're below a certain income level, you're eligible for Medicaid. If not, you're on your own. In our case, we have Medicare, but there's still a gap between that Medicaid and Medicare. Sometimes Medicare won't pay for stuff that Medicaid will, or
vice versa.
they'll pay for a larger percentage, if you will.
Yeah, we just talked about that with Insure. They wouldn't pay for, but Medicare would have, if he could have, would have paid for it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we heard that a lot when her dad had his stroke. Oh, too bad you're not on Medicaid. Oh, okay.
Well, and the thing was, he was not. Well, I mean, my dad lived on his pension, his Social Security. He had, because of the crash, he had lost a lot of his retirement income, but the thing is, he owned his home outright, and so they counted that against him as far as things that he owned is for his assets. Yeah, so it wasn't he couldn't live in it because it wasn't handicapped accessible, but it didn't matter, So again, the gap.
Yeah, there's one of the thing that I wanted to point out. It's kind of like, it's borderline fraud is what it is. It's the ADA says, for things like flights, hotel rooms, etc., you have to get the same rate as the ordinary customer gets, which is fine unless the only seat that is handicapped accessible is in first class or a suite instead of, just a normal room.
Right. Say you can't get around a small room, a typical hotel room, you would need a suite to be able to get around comfortably. And so that's where he's saying the upcharge of that because you have a disability and in order to use it properly.
And we see this a lot in Airbnbs and Burbos.
Yeah. Well, it's very hard to find something that's handicap accessible.
The bathroom is great. It's all exactly what I need, but for some reason they don't always take into consideration getting there through the house. As Pommy mentioned, a step up into the house. Yeah, that. makes it inaccessible. A narrow doorway makes it inaccessible. All that nice furniture they got is laid out in ways you can't get around it. So it's either inaccessible or we gotta move it out of the way. And I don't know about everybody, but Airbnbs are tending towards having nice furniture that I don't want to mess up. So it's like, okay, we need to move this table out of the way.
Yeah. Or even carpets. People, they don't realize carpets don't work with real chairs. So we were at the recent Verbo house, cabin, I guess you would call it. And they were nice enough. I'd seen they had removed all the carpeting and it was underneath the bed. So they had already taken it up knowing that we were handicapped. We needed the handicap access. I don't know what they could do about the bed, though. Kevin had to take a flying leap to be able to get on the bed.
It was one tall bed.
It was comfy, though.
Yeah, once you got there.
Okay, well, I think that is what we were going to talk about today. And anything we need to tell anybody?
We do, actually. On our website, as you know, we have this contest going on for the piece of art for the season. And all we want you to do is support the bare minimum. And the bare minimum is $3. But they have, since we got the Buy Me Coffee feature on the website, you have to dig into it because at first impression, it looks like you're signing up for $3 a month. But I promise you later on, you get a chance to say one-time payment of $3 or whatever you wanted to pay. So you're not signing up for a commitment to send us $3 a month, just the one-time deal.
Right. All right. Is that it?
And that's it. There's also a link for contacting Palmy and I. It's free to users in the U.S. And they're working on trying to make it free or as cheap as they can, inexpensive as they can. For international folks, that's one of their big concerns from our podcast company, who's not really led us astray since we've had a chance to have them host our podcast.
Yeah. You want to mention them?
We happen to use Buzzsprout, but there are others that do basically the same thing.
Yeah. We're happy with their service, though.
We're very happy with their service.
Okay. Well, we'll say goodbye and we'll see you next time.
Bye, Al.
We are always looking to improve the podcast, so if you want to hear a specific topic, have a differing opinion, want to add something to the conversation, drop us an email. Our contact information is listed on our website. It's www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. We have recently added a companion YouTube channel called Making the Lemonade. If you enjoy the podcast, continue your enjoyment by joining us on YouTube.